Welcome to the Transportation Sales Tax Program, also known as RoadWise. We're going to bring you a program today that I really feel you'll get a lot out of if you are watching how the County of Charleston is spending its transportation sales tax. Lots of projects, lots going on. So we'll be back in just a moment with my guest, Peter Valakat, and he'll tell us all about it.
Hey, Charleston County, let's recycle. Charleston County makes it easy. Recycling glass, aluminum cans, steel and aerosol cans, plastics 1 to 7. We recycle them all. And don't forget paper. If it tears, recycle it. Even cardboard. Recycle at work, at home, and at play. So whether you're using the 2 curbside bin system and separating or the all-in-one roll cart system, keep recycling. Brought to you by Charleston County Environmental Management.
Welcome to the Transportation Sales Tax Program, also known as RoadWise. I'm Cheryl Harleston. Today we're going to be talking about an aspect of the Transportation Sales Tax Program that many of you may not know about. We don't just lay asphalt, but in fact, we're concerned about bicyclists and people who want to walk. We're also interested in connectivity, and all of that comes under something called complete streets. And many communities have adopted that philosophy, and certainly we've done it here in Charleston with the Transportation Sales Tax Program. I'd like you to meet the lead manager or engineer for the RoadWise program or Transportation Sales Tax Program. In fact, his company is the managing agency for this entire program, Peter Valakat. Hello.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here too. What is Complete Streets?
Well, Complete Streets is really a policy that was adopted as part of the sales tax program when the Comprehensive Transportation Plan was developed back in 2006. And really what it says is that whenever the county is designing a highway project that other modes of transportation such as pedestrians and bicyclists are incorporated into the design so that they can be safe users of the roadway facility.
Did the county or did your company just come up with that, or is it something that the state or federal or local government said, hey, we need to make sure that when we build these roads that they accommodate people who want to do things other than just drive cars?
I think it's spreading on a national level, not just in Charleston County, but across the country to incorporate these other elements into highway projects.
Charleston is a big bicycle rider's dream. I noticed there are bicyclists all over the community, and I imagine that these kinds of pathways are working out very well. Can you always make sure that this kind of thing, a complete street, meaning a bicycle pathway, will they have to go in, and can they go into every single project that you do, or are you being selective about that?
There's different ways that they can be done, and it really depends on the setting of your project. If you're designing and building a road in a rural area, there's different ways you can handle it versus an urban area where you're restricted in the amount of right-of-way and space you have to build the project. And also you have to consider the likely user of the road, whether it's going to be more of a professional cyclist or if it's going to be, if you're in a suburban area with families and maybe around an elementary school, you might want to do something different for cyclists that are young or inexperienced.
You know, people are walking these days and they're exercising, and I think that's a good thing. A sidewalk was put into Mount Pleasant not too long ago in the Phillips community, and immediately after that sidewalk was laid, we saw families, women with baby carriages walking up and down, and that reminded me of the old days when there was a connection with your neighbor. Is that a big part of it, connectivity?
It is a real big part of it because a lot of trips that people make are over very short distances. They might be driving to the grocery store or to church or to visit a neighbor. And when you don't have a sidewalk or a bike path, then the only way for those folks to get to their destination might be to drive their car. And so when you incorporate complete streets elements into a project and provide sidewalks or bike lanes or bike paths in a neighborhood that provides folks with options and they don't have to take their car everywhere they're going to go.
Do you envision that at some point or another here in the Charleston area through the Transportation Sales Tax Program, we will see sidewalks that can literally connect people all over the county? Is that a goal?
Well, it's a goal for whenever the county is designing a project, like one of our major bond-funded projects, that these complete street elements are incorporated into the design and construction. Obviously, it would be nice to have sidewalks everywhere immediately, but we're always dealing with funding constraints. So many of the projects are, particularly smaller neighborhood type projects, are funded through the Charleston County sales tax through the what they call the annual allocation program, where a certain amount of money every year is set aside for bicycle and pedestrian improvements. But in addition to that, whenever the county is doing something like a resurfacing project, and you might see some of these older streets that have sidewalks, but there's no curb ramps, so people with disabilities have a difficult time if they're on a wheelchair, using the sidewalk. And so whenever the county is doing resurfacing, they go in and retrofit handicap accessible ramps at the intersections so that the streets are more friendly to other modes of transportation.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's absolutely true, and I've seen it for myself. And that's part of the plan then, is to make these streets, especially the sidewalks, make them applicable to people with handicaps. And that means that we're following the federal guidelines for handicapped individuals getting around.
That's right.
And so that's a part of the complete streets, or is that just something else?
Well,
we just want to do it.
I would consider that an element of a complete street, that it must be accessible to everyone, whether they're a walker or in a wheelchair. That the sidewalks in particular are designed with very carefully controlled slopes, so that somebody in a wheelchair can easily maneuver up the ramps and gain accessibility to the sidewalk.
It's back on this accessibility for people with in wheelchairs and the like. Is this something that is being done on all projects, or you do research and find out that there are folks who need their wheelchairs, and therefore we put in that kind of accessory? How do you make that decision?
All the new projects have to be designed to be handicap accessible,
no matter where they are.
It's a requirement that if you're installing sidewalk, that it must be an accessible sidewalk.
And so, what about the handman? Is that part of the Complete Streets program too? So that folks can get across the street and control the traffic a little bit on their own? Yeah,
the most new signal installations include a pedestrian crossing phase, where you might see on the signal pole a push button and a sign to tell people that if they press the button, that they'll have a protected signal phase. And on the opposite side of the intersection, you'll see a pedestrian signal that will indicate to the pedestrian when they can cross safely. It'll have an orange hand to tell them to stop, and then a white walking figure to tell them when they can walk. And the new ones also have the ability to have a countdown, so that the sign will actually tell people how many seconds they have left to cross the road.
In Mount Pleasant, I'm seeing just literally miles and miles, it seems, of walkway, and I can't imagine that other communities are able to afford that kind of thing. But when we come back from the break, I want to talk to you about how does Mount Pleasant do that, miles of sidewalks, and can other communities look forward to that in the future, or maybe right now? We'll find out in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Hey, Charleston County, let's recycle. Charleston County makes it easy. Recycling glass, aluminum cans, steel and aerosol cans, plastics 1 to 7. We recycle them all. And don't forget paper. If it tears, recycle it. Even cardboard. Recycle at work, at home, and at play. So whether you're using the 2 curbside bin system and separating, or the all-in-one roll cart system, keep recycling. Brought to you by Charleston County Environmental Management.
Welcome back to our program. I'm Cheryl Harleston. With me today is Peter Valakat, and he is the lead manager with the Roadwise program, the managing agency or managing organization that is. And we're talking about a program called Complete Streets. And many communities are being encouraged to make sure that there are walkways for people, that there are bicycle paths. And is there anything else that goes along with that, Peter, besides walkways and bicycle paths?
Well, there's, insofar as bicycle accessibility, you can either do a shared path, which is typically a wide, 10-foot wide asphalt path on one side of the road that's shared by bicyclists and pedestrians, or you can do bicycle lanes, which are designated lanes adjacent to the vehicular lanes that are typically 4 feet wide, and you'll see them designated with a white stripe to separate them from vehicle traffic and a bicycle symbol in the lane.
Oh.
Both have been done as part of the transportation sales tax program. Some examples are Pine Meadow Commerce Parkway in North Charleston has a shared use path. Bees Ferry Road in West Ashley will also have a shared use path that will connect into the path that was constructed by the City of Charleston up SC61. The bicycle lanes, you can see examples of those on projects that are under construction right now, like Johnny Dodds Boulevard. The frontage roads will have bicycle lanes. Harborview Road, the current plan is to have bicycle lanes designated. And also, in a number of cases, a good example is the St. Andrews Boulevard resurfacing that the county did that was sales tax funded. That project was a resurfacing project, but there was available width in the road to stripe bicycle lanes when it was completed. And so you can kind of see that being incorporated on more projects.
When you talk about shared lanes, are we talking about bicycles literally being on the other side of a stripe away from cars, or are they next to each other?
Well,
or is that the elevated sidewalk that we see, and that's where it's occurring?
Well, I think you're talking about two different things. There's a term called a shared use path, and that's a path that's separated from the road, typically by a few feet of grass, and sometimes separated by a curb. And that a shared use path is intended to be used by bicyclists and pedestrians. A bicycle lane is a dedicated lane only for use by bicycles that is separated from vehicles by the pavement stripe, the white stripe, and designated with bicycle symbols painted on the pavement. For roads that are very limited in space and might not have the right-of-way or funds to widen the road to provide a bicycle lane. In some cases, the solution is to designate the outermost vehicular lane as a shared use lane that is typically wider. The minimum width would be 14 feet, and that is enough width for a bicyclist to ride along the edge of the road and have enough room for vehicles to pass while staying in their lane, but enough room to pass the bicyclist.
And now, as far as wheelchairs, though, nothing like that exists where they're right next to the traffic.
No, the typical accessibility for wheelchairs is provided through a sidewalk, and the sidewalk will be separated from the vehicular lane either by a grass strip or a curb. And when you get to an intersection, if it's a roadway with a curb, then you have the accessible ramps that allow handicap users to get up onto the sidewalk.
And they can roll right off of that sidewalk and across the street, and they can meet another one to help them go up
That's right. Yep.
the sidewalk and continue their traveling. Has this always been a part of building roads? You've been in this work for a long time. This idea of complete streets and providing for bicyclists, or is this just going on in Charleston, South Carolina, because we have so many bicyclists?
I think there's been an evolution in how roads are planned. When you look at a lot of the projects that are being done, it's existing roads that may only accommodate vehicles at this point, that you might be adding a sidewalk to or adding bicycle lanes to make it more of a complete street and provide other modes of accessibility. And so you have those kind of retrofit projects where you're trying to incorporate something into a road that's already there, as opposed to a lot of our projects might be new construction where these elements can be built right into it from the get-go.
You were saying this is sort of an evolving idea or evolving activity that takes place when roads are built today. How long ago did that come about? When did we start all of this, and what was the reason? Was it the public that said we need places for our bicyclists and our handicapped people, and we want you, the government that's responsible for the tax dollars that make these roads and sidewalks, to get on the ball and do this, take care of this problem?
I don't know that I can pinpoint a particular, day for when this started, but I think a lot of it can be traced back to the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is a federal law that required governments to consider how to make buildings and roads and sidewalks handicap accessible, and so that was obviously a big part of it, particularly in relation to sidewalks and handicap accessibility.
Will we see this program, the Transportation Sales Tax Program, continue to put in these sidewalks and the like, or is it by request?
Well, the sales tax program is a 25-year sales tax that will last until 2030. And through that program, you have the bond-funded projects, which are the major projects intended to be completed in the initial years of the program, and most of those have been completed or are under construction right now. But the county has also the allocations program, which provides funds every year for bicycle and pedestrian projects that will continue through the end of the sales tax.
And so we will see those kinds of pathways or bicycle paths in most projects.
That's correct,
as we go forward until these dollars are gone, or we're all gone. I don't know which one. But the point is that the county is continuing to keep their promise on this bicycle pathways and,
That's right.
and the rest. And the sales tax has helped to make that possible.
That's correct.
And we will continue to see these bicycle paths. But my question is now, how do you make a decision on where you should put one or where you shouldn't put one? I'm talking about these walkways and bicycle paths and sidewalks and all these things that are part of complete streets. How do you decide? Is it the amount of land that you have there, or what makes that decision for the designer, the person that designs the project?
Well, the bond-funded projects went through, they all had a public involvement process that provided opportunity for residents and businesses to give feedback on how and what kind of a facility they would like on the road that they live on or use every day. So a lot of that went into the design of the project and were incorporated as applicable. That's how you end up with some projects that have a shared use path and other projects that have bicycle lanes and sidewalks. As far as the allocation program, that's the annual program for smaller, typically smaller projects. Those are generally requested by the municipalities and those elected officials that are aware of the needs of their community, and they requested projects go into a ranking matrix because it's a limited amount of funds. You have to have a way of determining what the immediate needs are, and so the ranking considers the volume of traffic, if there's any schools, if there's schools in the project area.
That would be a good case for this.
If there is public transit along a particular road, and when you have that, you generally have a higher density of pedestrians. There's a greater demand for a sidewalk for people walking to the bus stop. So there's a number of factors that go into it to determine, based on all the requests and all the needs out there, what projects get funded in a particular